There's going to be a glut of oil. Prices are therefore going to come down. There's going to be too much oil, not enough demand. It's all playing out right now. Besides military conflicts in the Middle East, for example, there's not a lot actually insisting or suggesting that oil prices would go dramatically higher anytime soon, and that they're actually going to be declining over time, as I've been telling you for quite a long time now. Besides the spikes from the military events, they're going to be declining over time. Very anti-inflationary. It's very good for the economy as oil prices get lower for the global economy. But as you'll see in this video, that's part of the problem. The global economy, which is bringing oil prices down as it deteriorates or slows down, is going to actually lead to lower oil prices, which will then allow the economy to function more efficiently and for less cost. One of the biggest players in the whole oil market is Saudi Arabia, of course. That's where most of the oil comes from. And they recently changed their strategy. They're trying to get to $100 a barrel oil because then they make more money and they can produce oil very inexpensively, especially compared to every other country in the world. But they've given up on the higher priced oil, and they said that we're going to start working on gaining or renewing our market share. We're going to lower prices. We'll produce more oil, put more oil into the market. That's going to bring prices down. Going to put a lot of pressure on all of our competitors, other countries, other oil producers, and generally make the long-term outlook for Saudi Arabian oil production even better. Putting some squeeze or some pressure on your competition. Gobble up or retain market share, get it back. That's exactly what's happening. So they go from constraining the supply to adding to the supply. And OPEC actually just recently cut their global oil demand forecast from 2 million barrels a day in 2024 to 1.7 million barrels a day in 2025. So in other words, just that math there translates to an extra 300,000 barrels of oil each year. And talking about another country that uses a tremendous amount of oil, that's China, and they have recently said that their crude oil imports have fallen by 3% year over year, and expect that trend to continue as their economy continues to slow down. There was a lot of talk of the Chinese government issuing some stimulus to try and revive the economy, and they didn't do as much as was expected, and that's what caused oil prices to fall a little bit more that day. But China's moving away from diesel-powered engines. They're going more towards electric vehicles, renewable energy, and liquid natural gas as their fuel source of choice. But China was bringing in 650,000 barrels of oil and revised that down to 580,000 year over year. And the OPEC nations, along with OPEC Plus, they've identified that they've got about 5 million barrels a day of spare capacity right now, today. Every day, 5 million barrels. That's where they're at. And when you have spare capacity and you keep producing it, it has to go somewhere. And then you've got more and more spare capacity until the demands turn around, which they're far from doing, as I'll explain to you in this video. And from my oil spike and fade video, I explained how it's the military events that dramatically suddenly spike oil prices, and then there's an ongoing pull lower as the economy slows down, the demand slows down, the production increases, the spare capacity builds up. But there's a ton of uncertainty about what kind of response Israel would have against Iran, and would they hit their oil refineries? And when Israel came out with a statement that they're not going to hit the oil refineries, the prices of oil just dropped. And that is also a risk premium that was built into the price of oil, and that risk premium was ripped away, and that's why the prices came down like they did. It's down about 4% on the day. And while we're talking about military, the other thing you want to keep an eye on, a couple of things, is there going to be American military involvement in the conflict with Iran? And that leads into the other thing, which could happen with America being involved and also without America being involved. And I've told you about this ages ago. The Strait of Hormuz, if that gets shut down, which could easily be shut down by Iran if they decided to do that. Just look at the Houthi rebels in Yemen. The effect they're having just once in a while may be sinking a boat. And that's changing the entire logistical flow of goods around the world. If the Strait of Hormuz gets closed, or even if there's threats of it, you'll see oil prices spike very significantly. How high would prices go? Who knows? But no matter what, take that spike as an opportunity to take any profits or sell any shares you want to get out of, because Once the spike fades, once the shock fades, that's when gravity sets back in and pulls prices lower. Gravity being the demand trends, the production trends, the surplus stockpiles, and the increasing economic weakness globally. The International Energy Administration also says that they're expecting lower oil demands. They're citing significantly slowing growth worldwide. And at the same time, you've got the dollar having tremendous strength lately. Here's a chart of the dollar index at DXY. You can see in the very recent time period how the dollar has strengthened dramatically in a short time to a 10-week high. And as the dollar strengthens, that makes it more valuable, more purchasing power, and it makes things like commodities seem to cost less. Which is funny because no one's realizing how much gold prices are moving, because that happened over a time recently when the dollar was increasing in strength, making it take less dollars to buy gold. And here's a chart from Trading Economics. This is the change in crude oil stocks. Not stocks like investment stocks, but like inventories. This is the change in crude oil inventories. In the Energy Information Administration, it's talking about U.S. crude oil inventories. On October 9th, they were expected to be a decline of 2 million barrels. But the actual result they got was an increase of 5.8 million barrels. That's how offside a lot of people are with their thinking. We're expecting oil supplies to be used up and stockpiles to fall, and then you get whipsawed or shocked where it's not down 2 million barrels. It's actually up 5.8. That's a lot of oil not being needed, a lot of oil not being used. So what does this all mean for you, and how do you act or benefit based on this information? Well, one thing I'm doing personally, and I'm not going to tell you what to do, it's not trading advice, it's all opinion only. I am using any kind of strength in oil to move out of a few of my energy companies, although I'm keeping many of them because you need to have exposure to oil because something can happen in an instant. The Strait of Hormuz shuts down. Boom. All of a sudden you're going to want to be owning oil stocks. It's the second most common liquid on the entire planet. We're finding other new ways, new technologies to avoid using these energy sources that are not renewable and instead moving more towards renewables. And as many economies around the world, Germany, America next will be in recession, Canada's in recession, Ireland, a lot of nations in the Eurozone, China's having trouble now. All of a sudden all these pulls towards oil are waning away or slowing down. And they'll recover. They'll come back one day. But first, we're going to go through a time of what I believe is going to be recession, a time of oil prices coming down, even beyond the influences of things that happen with the uncertainty and the risk premium, the war premium, and military conflicts around the world. I believe that oil prices are on a trend or a path much lower. Besides that, there's not a lot of forces that are going to be lifting oil, and thus not a lot of forces that are going to be lifting the stocks that benefit from oil prices increasing. You're going to want to keep an eye on this because when it changes and it starts going the other way, you're going to want to jump on that because that could be, if we see a capitulation point in oil, there'll be a time where it's just back up the truck and load up. And that's going to be a tremendous trade. Just like this has been with gold, just like the tremendous trade right now will be silver. Next it'll be oil, but first oil has to go lower. That's why you're going to want to connect with me, become a Peter Leeds Insider so that you get this information right when I'm looking at it. And also subscribe to this channel, please. You guys will love it. We've got lots of great videos coming out. Next one is going to be the Silver Squeeze Part 3.